Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're turning our attention to something quite serious, a critical event, really. That's the tragic crash of Air India flight AI-171 in Ahmedabad, India, back on June 12th, 2025. The human cost is just immense, and the ripple effects are being felt globally. Our goal here in this deep dive is to try and unpack what we know from the sources you've shared. We want to pull out the key facts, understand the investigation as it stands now, and grasp the immediate aftermath, all without, getting lost in the sheer volume of information. So let's get into it.
It's striking, isn't it, the way everyone mobilized so quickly. We saw this multinational effort kick in almost immediately. And that really speaks to how standardized these major aviation accident responses have become. It's almost pre-scripted in a way. You have India's NDTB, the FAA, Boeing, GE. They all have very defined roles. And that allows for, well, incredible speed in gathering data and doing that first preliminary analysis. That's a key lesson from past tragedies, definitely.
Absolutely. And before we dive deeper into the investigation itself, let's just lock down those core facts. What were the really critical initial details about Flight AI-171 that our sources highlighted?
Right, so AI-171, it was an Air India Boeing 7878 Dreamliner. Scheduled flight Ahmedabad to London Gatwick, and it crashed, shortly after takeoff on June 12th, 2025. The scale, as you said, is just heartbreaking. We're talking about approximately 270 lives lost in total. That figure includes the 241 passengers and crew who were on board the aircraft, but also, and this is crucial, around 29 people on the ground. It impacted a medical college hostel. So the tragedy really extends beyond the plane itself, impacting those directly in its path.
And amidst all that devastation, there's this one detail that immediately stands out, bringing such a powerful human element to it. The sole survivor, a British citizen found in seat 11A who apparently walked away with only minor injuries. It's astonishing, isn't it?
Astonishing is the word. And it's more than just a miracle, though it feels like one. That fact, the sole survivor, seat 11A, minor injuries, it becomes a really vital piece of data for crashworthiness research. It could potentially tell engineers so much about structural resilience in that specific part of the plane, or about the impact dynamics. You can be sure they'll be poring over every detail related to that seat, looking for lessons that could genuinely save lives down the road.
Great. So with that initial picture established, the crash, the scale, the survivor, the focus naturally swings straight to the investigation. Our sources suggest they're already zeroing in on several key areas. What are the preliminary findings indicating?
Yeah, the preliminary work is definitely pointing in a few directions. Investigators are looking hard at potential engine failure. That's one major area. They're also examining the flight control surfaces, the flaps, ailerons, that sort of thing. And the landing gear is under scrutiny too, plus the possibility of, well, pilot operational error. It's complex. But crucial steps have already been taken. They recovered both black boxes, the flight data recorder, and the cockpit voice recorder. Now, one of them apparently sustained some heavy damage, which is worrying, but the other was found relatively intact. So there's definite hope for getting vital data off that one. And as we mentioned, international teams are heavily involved. India's NDTB is leading.
That's their National Transportation Safety Board, right?
Exactly. And alongside them, you have the US FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration. Boeing, obviously, is the manufacturer, and GE, who made the engines.
Okay, so you have all these different players, India's NDTB, the FAA, Boeing, GE. Maybe you can clarify for listeners, what specific expertise does each one bring, and how do they actually work together to ensure the investigation is, thorough and unbiased?
Sure. Each brings something absolutely essential to the table. India's NDTB, they lead the overall investigation on the ground. They coordinate everything locally, manage the crash site. The FAA, being the regulator for a U.S. manufacturer like Boeing, provides crucial regulatory oversight and technical backup. Boeing itself, they have all the specific aircraft data, the design blueprints, the deep engineering knowledge of the 787, invaluable. And GE, naturally, focuses on the engine's performance data, maintenance history, potential failure modes. They know those engines inside out. How they coordinate? Well, it's governed by international protocols, ICAO Annex 13 mainly. These protocols lay out standardized procedures, how data is shared, ensuring everyone works from the same playbook to get a complete picture.
That makes sense. It's a complex web, but necessary. Shifting away from the technical side for a moment, the human stories emerging are just profoundly sad. The sources really paint a heartbreaking picture of the lives that were touched by this.
They really do. It's incredibly difficult to read. As of June 22nd, the report said 247 bodies have been identified through DNA matching, and 232 of those had already been returned to their families for the final rites. That focus on identification, on getting remains back to loved ones quickly, and providing mental health support is so critical right after something like this. The sources mentioned just heartbreaking scenes at funerals, stories of crew members, passengers who were pregnant, parents, a British couple. Air India announced interim compensation, 25 lakh per victim initially, I believe, and a commitment of euro-crow total for parents who lost children in the crash. Plus, they're providing mental health teams and helping families navigate all the paperwork and bureaucracy that comes with such a tragedy. It's a vital part of the immediate response.
That support is so important. So on that note, how have Air India and the aviation regulators, like the DGCA, responded more broadly?
Well, the DGCA, that's the Directorate General